Look, we haven't done it yet this season, but we've heard your feedback and we're going to give you the pod you need right now. A pod praising keeping a clean sheet. This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot, speaking Black Man, Gunner. That's right. We are here to do 90 minutes praising Arsenal's defensive record this season. I feel tapped into the zeitgeist. I feel like someone who understands the Arsenal community. I get on all the socials so you don't have to, so I can read what's out there in the ether. And what I am picking up on is that people want to celebrate our defensive record. And we're going to do it. So the way we'll break this down, the first third will be celebrating the defenders themselves. The second third will be celebrating the organization. But how long can I keep this bit going? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to freak out about how we don't score the goals. We don't do the goals. We don't kick the ball in the net. The players all stink. The manager stinks. The tactics stink. And that's why we stink. Well, you know what? Maybe we don't stink, and maybe the players don't stink, and maybe the manager doesn't stink, but we may have a bit of an issue, and we do need to break it down. If you want the emotional reaction to the game, that's the instant reaction. It did get a bit emotional. There were some fingers pointed. There were some fingers bitten off. The fingers have been reattached. You can do that. You can go over there. You can use the 10-0 thing and see what you think of the whole Patreon thing. And Tim is going to do what we all need right now, which is a pod about Arsenal this week, but 80s Arsenal. So we don't have to think about current Arsenal. We're going to take you back so you can get that. But guess what we did? We said, what can we do to make everybody really excited about a 0-0 against Everton? How about putting the whole band back together? So here with me now is Paul. Hello, Paul.
Why me first? Woohoo!
Why always me? Did you lift up your shirt and it said why always me on the bottom? And here with me now is Tim. You can find him on where he. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Beats me anymore. And here with me now is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
It is the full boat, the whole boat. So I was thinking we could just start with City losing the derby. So we'll start with that. No, I don't want to do that. Guys, sometimes I think you gotta take a breath and you gotta start with taking stock. So let's do that. Let's take a little bit of stock before we get into the weeds. I think this will be less about the game tactically. There'll be some player analysis of the game and some moments, and we'll get into the game. But I think we want to go a little bigger picture. It feels like a moment for that. So it feels a little bleak out there right now, Clive. The one thing about elevating expectations is that you can be pretty good and still fall well short of them and leave people very upset. So as you come away from this game, you look at the landscape of the league, not taking advantage of Liverpool dropping points, Chelsea looking like they might actually be in the title race. Maybe they have no Europe. What's your take on just sort of the impact of these drop points and the mood around Arsenal right now in general? How are you reacting to the setback?
Yeah, you can gauge it in different ways, right? So at the game, watching the game intently, and we didn't quite get our moment. Sometimes when a team suffers a defeat or a late draw or whatever, there's a couple of fans that always hang around, and the camera pans on them as they're sitting there looking gloomy. I was one of those fans at the weekend. I didn't realise I was sitting there, so I can't pretend it didn't impact me. But funny enough, sometimes just talking to people is good, right? So on the way out, I saw a few people, and they all gave me their tactical solutions, what they would have done. I could hear this guy TV in the stadium sort of saying that, why did he take off the captain? Why did he take off Rice? And almost like the more people I spoke to, the more solutions are being thrust at me. Went into the Tollington. People were saying, why don't we switch our wingers? Why do we take Odegaard off? Why do we keep Ranieri on? Why do we have to bring on, why do you bring on Georgie? I mean, literally, there was about 30 different solutions being thrown at me. And I'm just sitting there thinking, being a pragmatist, Elliot. I'm thinking, could we buy another centre half in this group, or could we could we kick the ball in the net? Maybe that would change a lot of people's feelings, because I did walk away thinking Saturday was close to being a really, really good day out and night out, and it wasn't quite that because of the result.
It is funny how everything interacts with each other, because Liverpool dropping points, would have made Odegaard sticking one of those chances away make this feel like it's back on, here we go, right? Like it really would have had that, and people wanted that, and it felt teed up for us to get that, and not doing that. I mean, I almost think if Liverpool had won, there would have been more of a collective shrug of, well, it's just not our season. The ball's not going in the net. They're running away with it. It's not our season. But every time they give us these drop points to Newcastle, to Everton, and we don't take advantage, it's that much more frustrating because there's only so many windows like this. Tim, I do think that there is a tendency sometimes to create an online versus in the ground fan dichotomy. And I don't think that's fair. We are all supporters. Just because you're not at the ground doesn't mean you're less important. But sometimes we know this. For clicks, for views, for shares, for cred, there are people that will say more inflammatory things online, and sometimes that can make you think that the atmosphere is more toxic than it might be. Hard to measure. No easy way to measure that. So I do want to give you the chance to do your, as someone who went to the game in my amazing seat with amazing view thing. I heard a few boos at full time. I think there was less lusty support. It's inevitable that with expectations raised so high, the good feeling vibe at the Emirates from 2 seasons ago was going to depend more on performances as time went by. How are you gauging where this project is in terms of the support from the people you go with, the people you interact with? Like, this setback does not have to be the end of anything, but I'm curious where you feel like the patience level is at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, everything passes, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of maybe Paul's more the one for this question. This is like, one of the central tenets of Buddhism, right? Is that all emotional states are temporary, effectively, and there's a middle ground somewhere. And
don't forget, all life is suffering. That's a good one.
Yes, well, yeah, indeed. Which, if you've become a football fan, you've really done that on steroids.
That's not true. The Chelsea fans who became City fans are having a pretty good life overall.
Well, are they at the moment, though?
No, but that's all right. They're Liverpool fans now.
But yeah, so the momentum we saw kind of inside the ground, which was a number of things coalescing together, like the post-COVID context in particular, like a lot of these things, like a lot of great teams, a lot of great musicians and great bands. It's a moment in time. A lot of it's a bit of a happy accident, and it will come to a kind of a resting pulse at some point. That's just the way these things are. Like it is impossible to stay like giddy and ecstatic forever. The hangovers in the post, as it were. And so, like, yeah, and I think we all know that in terms of the project, like, it's delivery time now, and I can completely understand why everyone's like so frustrated, because it really felt like this might be the year we got a bit closer the last 2 years. And of course, I think the frustration is just multiplied because Man City are completely flatlining at the moment, and we might not be, like, if you'd given us that in May, if you'd told me in May, this sucks, we've lost the league by a point or 2 points, wasn't it? But wait till November, December, because City are going to completely implode. You'd be rubbing your hands together going, right, well, it's ours. Yeah. And the fact that it doesn't look like it is of course, that's like doubly frustrating. I don't think people are like...
Tim, they're completely imploding, and they're only 3 points behind us.
Yeah, indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed. I liked your analogy, Elliot, about like... the bad guy in the movie, and you're like, he's not dead. Go and hit him on the head again, you idiot.
They're all standing around celebrating, toasting to each other while Jason is sitting there like sharpening his knife on the ground.
Dropping the gun to the floor and turning your back and just being,
let's go hide in this shed full of axes. Like, what are you doing? Just kill the bad guy.
But yeah, so I don't think like we're at the, but people are very invested and frustrated. Like, it's not acidic in the ground or anything, but of course the expectations there, and of course it is. We all predicted Arsenal would win the league in the pre-season prediction podcast, so like, none of us can stand here and tell people not to feel frustrated or annoyed.
You're right, but maybe you're making a point that we should all think about to help us take a deep breath, which is, over the last 7 seasons, really only one team has consistently been able to run away with this league, and that's Manchester City, right? Liverpool have had a couple of seasons, to be fair, where they've had a right old go at it, as you might say on your side of the pond, Tim. But like, this is a fairly competitive league. My God, count the easy games, because there aren't a lot of them. There's the relegation sides, and that's about it. And Newcastle took points off Liverpool, and Fulham took points off Liverpool, and Forest took points off Liverpool. And like, unless you think Liverpool are going to run away with the league, I think the lesson is just that this is a league that could very easily be won by 82 or 84 points if City are mortal. if City are mortal, unless you think Liverpool are back in the runaway with the league territory. So, and again, my point isn't to create false hope. It's just that the expectation of 90-point seasons is kind of what City set as a target, but there's really not been many points in history where that's been what you're supposed to do. And frankly, even in those points in history, the league was much weaker than it is now. I don't know that there were many leagues once upon a time where the title contender could go to a place like Fulham and expect to maybe drop points or be challenged to drop points. And that's the league we're in now. Like I said, it's not meant to be false hope. I do think City have broken our brains a little bit, though, on what a points tally is supposed to look like season in, season out. Paul, look, related to this game, the thing that worries me, and I'm quite good at worrying, I have a list of worries we can get to.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back, and he was good, and I think left back, let's not point to left back as like, that's going to unlock the project, #TM. This is essentially the lineup you'd say was what we thought going into this season is our first choice lineup. This is the 93-point season lineup. It's Kai up front. It's Saka and Martinelli on the wings. It's Marino, Odegaard, Rice midfield. It's Galiba. So it is Galiba or Sabriel and Galiba. It's Timber on the right. Maybe you would have said Ben White, but Timber's a reasonable facsimile of that. And it's Raya. And that's the thing that I'm looking at. So is there a little concern for you, which is just that an Everton team that was organized and resolute and had a little more rest than us was able to shadow box us a bit more than you'd like to see from a team that we don't have a lot of internal solutions to get much better than this?
Sure. And I think even Miles Lewis-Skelly, I think he had a solid game.
Yeah.
Could have been maybe a bit more decisive on the ball, but, good. So basically you got 11 players starting and a decent bench. Should be fine. Just get back to the old winning ways where we're cranking out 16 of 18 wins, 1 draw. But it's not that easy. And you got to build up some level of momentum. You got to build up the kind of state of momentum and mentality where the breaks go your way. And at the moment, I've just been listening to the Arscast, and James has said a couple of times along the way, didn't say it this morning so far, I haven't got all the way through. He's been saying for a while now, it just doesn't feel like a season where the things are going to go our way, that they're going to start going our way. And I'm like, well, that's not how it works. The past is not the future. These things but yeah, a couple of games since he said that, I'm starting to feel it's just not quite going our way. As I listen to Tim and Clive talking about, dissatisfaction, or the people coming out of the game talking about it's this problem, that problem, I can't help realizing there's like a Tolstoy quote I quite like, which is, I don't actually think it's true, but I think it's a cool quote. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. And what I notice when we lose is that there's a million different reasons people think if we did this thing, it would fix it. If we do, this is the issue, that's the issue. And as we talk about these things, other people's view of what the problem is usually annoys me and seems to annoy other people, which is why they get into big fights.
Yeah, that's a great point. You point to this thing and you're like, this is a thing that's broken, and people hate it because they think it's this other thing that's broken.
Yeah.
I think Martinelli had a poor game. You're an idiot. Kai had a poor game. everybody's got their diagnosis.
And I think there's a psychological witches of Salem thing, which is if you don't think witches are the problem, you're the problem. They think it's perhaps the way you laid out the corn, and that's why it didn't grow, and that the weather goes up and down. But you don't think it's the witches. Therefore, you're the problem, because then we're not going to fix the problem. Whereas when you win, actually everybody's got different reasons why, but it all feels like adding to, not subtracting from your point. Oh, yes, that was great too. Oh, yes. When you look at so we're in this very difficult thing where we're assessing. And I go to one thing in this whole game. You guys will talk about stuff and I'll agree with, but I'll think you're missing the point. I know what my one thing in this game is, and we'll get to it as we go along.
Yeah, well, and if
that's your luggage,
if Monty
that's your luggage you bring in the room. We all have our luggage, right? We have our luggage.
Yep.
I can hear people saying, "No, I'm going to skip till you get to Havertz. I'm going to skip till you get to Martinelli. I'm going to skip." It's just whatever your thing is. That's it.
There's also the big man of history thing, right? Which is a lot of people read history thinking, oh, it's about Hitler and Stalin and Churchill. And in fact, other people think it's about the process. There's a kind of an inevitable process where these and I think that happens in football too.
Well,
this one player would solve it. Ironically, the big man up front or and it's a mixture of yes. Yeah, go ahead.
As Monty Python taught us, witches float, and other things that float are bread, apples, and very small rocks. So there you go. That's something that you can bring to the discussion. If you haven't seen that scene, I strongly encourage you to watch it. Clive, look, I agree with Paul, but I slightly disagree in this respect. The one thing that everybody seems to agree on is we just don't either create enough or score enough, or a little column A, a little column B. I have seen a few too many halves of football from Arsenal now where I feel like we are at walking pace to start games. And almost like we're looking at the Rubik's Cube and we're not going to touch it till we figured out what we want to do. Then we'll start touching it. But like we're trying to win games in a half of a game. And I'm curious what you thought about our start to this game, because like we created enough to win it on another. I mean, Martin Odegaard is maybe our best finisher in the team on form. And he had 3 chances, the likes of which I expect him to put one away. But I definitely think that we go into games too comfortable taking what the opposition is giving us initially. So do you agree with that? Did you spot a lack of intensity in the way we attacked this game and the lack of desire to really put fear and panic into Everton early on? Because the longer games go 0-0, the more these teams feel there's something here for us if we just stay organized, you know?
Yeah, and that last line is the line. Because we could all see what the Everton game plan was. Let's just stay tight, 4-5-1, really tight. The 5 in midfield, double up fullbacks when they go wide, because they're going to go wide, because we're not going to give them the centre. And they're not going to go over, because Tarkowski and Brathwaite are decent in the air, so they're going to go wide. So we need to get out wide quickly, right? And then see if we can stop them coming inside again. By the way, we've seen this before with Newcastle and other teams that have done it. But some other teams have actually scored. Made it difficult for us to actually equalise, or that's why we've had too many draws.
Fulham did,
yeah.
right?
Fulham had one chance. There you go. It felt a bit Fulhamish. So maybe that Fulham goal maybe made us a little bit cautious in the pace of our attack. And I've got tactical reasons why we attack the way we do. We sometimes, my feeling in it, we attack slowly so we can get into shape to attack, but also shape to defend. Right, so that's a big thing for us. And sometimes, the reason I can say that, I watch the manager slowing us down on the sideline. I can see it happening. I also see when we attack too fast and Liverpool nick in and score a goal against us. So I sort of know what we're trying to do. But again, it's back to where you want to go, isn't it? I felt in the first half we missed our chances when we were sharp and fresh, but we weren't as sharp as we needed to be to score. At the moment, we look a bit indecisive and lacking a little bit of a last touch devil in us and lacking a bit of instinct in what we're doing. So I didn't think we passed out the first half as much. In fact, I had regrets that the chances fell to maybe the wrong person on the day, and then funny enough, the sort of chances Odegaard got, I wouldn't mind Ethan Nwaneri getting, because he's a bit of a shooter. Do you know what I mean? And so I wouldn't mind him getting, when he came on, he didn't get any of those chances, right? So it's wherever you want to go. This is the thing about this game for me. My takeaway is the problem could be a number of things. It's probably all of the things. But in the end, we have to work out what's fixable. And Elliot, one thing I've learned from meeting people like yourself and Scott is that the data tells us exactly where our issues are. Our issues, for me, are in around execution. We could build up a little bit better and be a bit sharper. But our issues are around execution. Our execution numbers against the league do not look great. Our touches in the box, or how we attack the box, does look good. So it's an easy sum to make, right? We can get there. When we get there, there's the discussion. And do you want to go at the manager? Do you want to go forward? I'll put X underneath it. You can choose your forward, or do you want to blame individual strategy and tactics, right? You decide where you want to go. But it's clear to me where we're falling down. We're conceding on the first punch on occasions, and we're not knocking people out on occasions. And that's it for me. Very simple.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's from from an aerial view, from a 30,000 foot view, that's exactly it. And by the way, if you think Mikel had a bad day, just spare a thought for Russell Martin, whose fans waved him over and said, "Give us a wave." He gave them a wave, and then they booed him, and then he got sacked. So it can always be worse. Yeah,
Can I just say something,
Yeah.
Russell Martin? Actually, I reposted it this morning so people can get onto my timeline. But there's a guy who did a pre-season interview with him, and he sort of said he spoke about his game model, which is very adventurous. We all know he plays out from the back, etc. With quality of players that he may not should be playing that system. But he said something that I learned from. He said, "People will question your game model when you lose. When you win, they won't say a word." And I thought, that's really interesting, because right now, our game model is being questioned, isn't it? It is, isn't it? By
Yep.
many people. How we play, the style we should play, the predictability, the pace, the individuals within that game model is being questioned. And a lot of that is due to the results, I'm afraid. And that's
Yeah.
a discussion. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here.
Well, so that's an interesting question for you, Tim. Like, when we score nil, no one wants to hear that we conceded nil, right? When we scored nil, no one wants to hear that we had 72% possession. They had 2 shots, one of which was blocked. So really 1 shot, 0.09 XG that, we had all the ball. No one wants to hear that, because the goal isn't to draw 0-0, it's to win. And there is this, I think, theory popping up that actually we're so good defensively because we prioritize that and we're too conservative. And in the way we attempt to attack, we don't open ourselves up to enough risk at the other end. I am simultaneously unconvinced by that and convinced by it, if possible. Because there's a part of me that's like, what do you mean no risk? Our entire 10 outfielders are in the attacking third, and our keeper is on the halfway line. So we had 48 touches in their box. We're not creating enough shots. By the way, my take on this game is we created enough to win it. We had the same XG from the game we won 3-0 against Forest. We didn't take our chances. And when you don't take your chances, they're not enough chances. Until you take your chances, they're not enough chances. I think there were enough chances to win this game, but I want to be clear, I don't think it's as many chances as we should have created. I think we should absolutely batter to bad Everton, and we clearly didn't do that. But I also think on another day, we get, Pickford doesn't save from Saka, Odegaard doesn't drag his shot wider or take the extra touch in the box or blast over. We get one of these. Now, when we come to the subs, I'm going to talk about where I think Mikel really got it wrong on the day, and I know Paul will as well. He's got a big point on that. But my problem with the idea that we're too conservative in our approach is that I don't see how we can put any more people into that area. But I do think some of the profiles of players we've recruited and have in those areas are players who are not necessarily most well-skilled in the attacking third qualities, right? I look at what Liverpool have done. They've got 3 10s on the pitch, right? They don't have a 6. they've got 8s playing 6 and 10s playing 10s. City have always sort of played 1 6 and 2 10s. Now that they don't have Rodri and Kovacic, though, they can't stop anybody. So you can go down by the elevator very quickly. What do you think about this? Like, do you see an Arsenal, especially in that first half where I thought we were very one-paced, that tries to balance too much towards the organizational side of things? How do you diagnose whether the system itself is installing too much conservatism into what we do?
Yeah, I think this is the heart of the debate. Everybody accepts that Arsenal, for where they want to be, need more in attack. And I suppose there's a spectrum due to how much. And again, I think everyone thinks to some extent that is a recruitment issue, that we don't have like another one of those players other than Saka. But then there's the kind of, do you think it's a coaching issue as well? Like, I kind of wrote about the attack last week, and I said Arsenal have got 2 game breakers, because that's the thing about us. When we do score, when we do get that first goal, we tend to start games well, first 15, 20 minutes. And when we score, West Ham 5-2, Sporting Lisbon 5-1. Look at the 6-0s and 5-0s last year. Like, Arsenal don't actually win 1-0 very often. Look at Monaco in the week. We missed a hatful of chances, but we got the first one and we won 3-0. We took care of it. We're really reliant on breaking the game open. And when games are like this, we've basically got Saka, who can do it, and we've got Nicolas Jova, who can do it. And I think everyone accepts we just need another one of those players. Essentially, I would argue that Liverpool's only absolute bona fide game breaker is Salah. It's just he's probably the best one around.
He's the best player in the world right now. Full stop.
I think he probably is. And for me, for all the reasons you've just set out, I don't think it is a coaching issue. Look at what we do with our left back. Like, it's weird because we'll have these conversations like, can't play Zinchenko, he's never at left back, he's always in midfield, and Calafiori. And by the way, like, I'm not saying that that's like an incorrect criticism or observation, or when Calafiori plays at left back, we played Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back. He's an 18-year-old central midfielder, and we're basically asking him to play in midfield. Look at where Saliba and Gabriel are when we've got the ball. Like, I'm with you. Like, and David Raya's defending our entire half. Like, I think Arteta's coaching in terms of, because we dominate everyone we play. We dominate everyone. But, of course, there is a bit of nuance to that. I think a lot of teams now are maybe not contesting that. And what's happening as a result of almost our own quality, our own dominance, is we're playing a lot of these mid-blocky teams now who are kind of like, okay, hands up, we can't compete with you that way, so we're just going to have to kind of mid-block you. And so then it's like, so what else? So what else do we have? Because I don't think like the way we attack or anything like that, I don't think it should really change. And I think what people are talking about is personnel, is that kind of, can we get that Alexis Sanchez type player who can break a game open, or maybe a slightly lighter, more gracile version of Andre Arshavin? Like, I think we're talking profiles. We're not talking, we don't get the ball in the box enough, or we don't we utterly dominate teams all the time, like without exception. It's just they're probably a bit more pliant and allowing us to, like Everton let us do it. Like they weren't contesting that. It's just a case of, do we just have that other player perhaps who can produce something really, really reliable in those moments? And for me, that is absolutely a personnel coaching, a personnel recruitment thing.
Yeah. And, just by comparison, if you look at Liverpool this season, because they're the team at the top of the league, the funny thing is they've only scored 2 more goals than we have. Now, they have a game in hand. But if you look at the 1.2 expected goals we created yesterday at home to Everton, 1.2 expected goals, I think there's enough there to win it. But just so we're clear, Liverpool have only had 2 games this season where they've had a lower XG than that, or that XG. One against us, and the other against Forest when they lost. Okay? So that's it. And we have the best defense in the league. But, that isn't how you win leagues, unfortunately, right? Leagues are decided by getting 3 points. And it's funny because I give us a real chance in the Champions League, because I think if you can hold teams to 0 in the Champions League, you got a shot to win the Champions League. But I don't think you can do that in a league. And this all feels a little weird because, as we know, Arsenal broke our goal scoring record last season, and it was a record we had set the season before. And that was the engine that drove us on to a title challenge. And so it all becomes very difficult to diagnose. But Paul, like, as we get into the game, this is going to be the push and pull in any debate. Is it the game model or is it the players? And I think it is the players. And maybe that's just how I view football. But I don't see an Arsenal that doesn't have enough of the ball in the right areas, doesn't have enough. And look, sometimes it moves a little too slowly, okay? Like, if I had to pick an argument with our game model, it would be that we don't get the ball central enough. And that when you're playing a big team like Everton, a Dyche team, what do they want you to do? Get it wide and put it in the box. Hooray! They can do that all day, right? But at some point, when you get it wide, those wide players have to win. Saka wins consistently. Martinelli doesn't. Leo doesn't. Marino wasn't there for us. So I don't know. I mean, do you think that one of the problems with this game is just that the way we wanted to do it, get it wide and get it in the box, fed too much into Everton's strength? Or was there something else about how they were able to hold us at bay?
Now, I'm no master of body language, but I suspect you're giving Clive some absolute palpitations here.
He's the tiger in the cage, and I'm holding the red meat outside of the cage. He's just trying to get at the red meat, but I'm going to give you a shot first.
And I have to say, maybe on a slightly lower dial, I was bothered by what you said there towards the end with we should just play more centrally. I mean, literally Everton had a
5 guys, 6
pyramid
guys. I know.
and a shape. And like, say what you like about Sean Dyche, he's pretty good at the without the ball shape until you get them a bit ragged, or maybe they're stressed and tired at the end of the game. And like, we should have been better in the first half, right? We didn't have that energy, that tempo. We planned to, we tried to. They're probably all looking at each other, wondering, what's going on today. I think it's you 10 guys, not me. They're all trying, but it didn't quite happen. But we came out at halftime, and sometimes that happens. Now, our best Arsenal starts fast in the first half and comes at them and gives themselves 90 minutes to win a game. This team gave themselves 45 minutes, but they came out at halftime full of beans, full of energy, right? And the second half was different to the first half. Even if looking back on it, you feel it was the same, it was not the same. To your point, in terms of the game model or the players, I go for a third thing, which is it's neither. Our players were good enough last year. I think we strengthened a bit in the summer. They're basically all there. They're basically all fit, right? Would be great to have Calafiori. He's not there yet. And certainly a player like that would have had a field day at times against an Everton, which is looking for us to be predictable within our shape and our movement. And you want a player who'll just streak up the pitch into midfield, crash into bodies. Like Calafiori would have been a great help. But we had Timber, not so bad. And you got Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's going to keep the shape a bit more. Timber could be that guy. But the opportunities just didn't seem to come about in the first half. We just didn't seem to be quite on it enough. And so we left the game till the second half. I don't think there was much more we could have done centrally. We had tall guys. We had Marino. We had Havertz. The plan would have been to get up the pitch, get some corners, mix it up a bit, use our height. That's how you'd get centrally. I don't think central was an option really in that first half. At some point in the second half, they were going to get a bit more stressed and you'd start to get at them in the center. So, don't get me wrong, of course you can always do better. Of course you want more centrally, but it's really fucking hard because that's literally where they have their 10 trees standing centrally, and they'll give you a little bit on the edge and you can play up. That's why we played it up and down and around a bit.
Yeah.
Things get interesting in the second half and a game breaks out. We come with intensity. Weirdly, they do. They're pressing. There's a game of football for about 20 minutes at the start of the second half that, for whatever reasons, the manager takes apart. Now, I'm sure he looked at the team at halftime, looked out to give his speech to the team, and you saw Martin Odegaard with cross-eyed, red, blurry eyes from holding his baby at 4 a.m. I don't really know what it was, right? Because as Ethan Nwaneri is on the sideline, the 2-3 minutes before that is probably the best 2-3 minutes we have, which involve Martin Odegaard creating all sorts of chaos and trouble, and Saka getting at them, and we're getting shots. And I'm like before that, he might have said, "Well, a little Odegaard's maybe a little off." Like if it were me in hindsight, I'd be saying, "Ethan, sorry about this. Could you go back to the bench here and leave Martin Odegaard and the boys to do their thing, right?" Because we were getting at them. We were starting to stir the pot. We were getting in, we were getting around. Saka was getting at them. He was getting shots off. Odegaard was doing those really clever stuff to get, like all those things you wished Martin Odegaard had done on the day looking back. He was starting to do them. 2, 3, 4 chances. Well, 2 never sounds like a lot, but it's actually a lot in 2 minutes, right? It was probably 2, 3 chances in a short period of time. It's working, guys. Don't fucking do maintenance on a helicopter in flight. It's working.
Yeah, I think Mikel sort of acknowledged the sub didn't work either too, right? He says if you bring Ethan on and scores, it's a great sub. If you don't, you've taken your captain off. We know there's probably something.
Look, played that game, right? He's
let's
never
be honest.
played against an Everton who's sitting deep.
No,
with 30 minutes to go. He's come on when there's a bit of space and a bit of time, and I think it was an unreasonable ask. Now, I'm sure the manager had his reasons. I don't know what they were, but I'm sure he did.
And here's what I would say. This is where I'd be more critical of Mikel, to the extent that I'm permitted to do so. I would have brought him on for Marino. You know, like the like for like of it is what bothered me. Because now, look, there may have been a need to take Odegaard off that Mikel won't talk about. He's too fatigued, and when you're fatigued, you could pull him out. I don't know. But assuming he could have carried on, which Mikel suggests he could have, it's the like-for-like nature of it that bothers me. I mean, at the end of the day, Mikel, if you think Ethan Nwaneri has a little explosiveness to unlock the defense and Mikel Merino's not doing it, I'm fine with you making that sub. I don't know why you're going like for like with your captain who, while he wasn't on it, had our 3 best chances of the day, aside from one from Saka. And on another day, he takes one of those chances. I mean, there are going to be people, by the way, that point to the fact that United blew away this Everton team 4-0. United took fewer shots, had fewer touches in the box, had less XG, and conceded more. And they won 4-0. And the first goal they got was from a deflected goal, where it went in for him and changed the game. We had a penalty shout. We didn't get it. Odegaard had a chance. He didn't get it. I'm not trying to say woe is me. I'm trying to say that football, unfortunately, the analysis can often wind up being driven by whether something goes for you that on another day it might have. But I do agree with you, Paul. We had something cooking in the second half. I think if he leaves Odegaard out there long enough, we find that one more chance, like we did against Porto. When it wasn't going for us, and Odegaard was the architect of the one chance we needed. Clive, you wanted to come in on the stuff that I threw to Paul to start with. So rather than me trying to ask some fatuous question, give me what you got.
Ask the question anyway.
I don't really have one specific to that, but more along the lines of tactics. Tactics and subs versus talent and execution.
Yeah. So just for sort of restating a lot of what Paul said. Actually, he did a great job, Paul. Basically, mate, there was no. Sean Dyche had 10 days to prepare for us. Mm-hmm. That was an attack versus defense drill for him. They stayed in their shape. They knew exactly what they were doing. And by the way, end of last game of the season, they needed the same thing, by the way. On a day when there was only ever going to be one result. So this guy knows what he's doing when it comes to low blocks, mid blocks. He knows what he's doing. It's not like, and he was absolutely buzzing with it. And if anything, what we normally happens, we get them late in games because they tire. Well, they're not tired this time. They've had their Dubai trip, mate, in the time they last played. Do you know what I mean? They had 10 days to rest. They had to put a friendly in to keep them sharp. We had about 20 games since they last played. So we couldn't move around in the same way. No one is letting us go down the centre anymore, right? So, and Arsenal are not going to play into the tall trees, right? So there is a debate. I was having this debate with somebody online today who messaged me. He said, why does Mourinho and Odegaard go so wide in the first phase of play? And what they're trying to do is to build up into the wide areas, to get some movement there, to try to stretch that middle. So when we come back second phase, there's lanes to play into. When I look at Mourinho, why are you out wide? Why are you there on the touchline? I want you in the middle so we can pass to you. Well, all you data boys will tell me, Elliot, well, not you particularly, I don't mean that aggressively.
Someone will.
Well, this is what's happening with coaching, right? I say this a lot. The globalization of coaches are telling you where you can and can't lose the ball. You cannot lose the ball centrally in the middle part of the pitch. You know what happened? You'll concede. So what do? We go around into the wide areas. If you lose it there, you can recover. Or you go over. If we go over the press, we get called Jose Mourinho football because we're too direct. Because we pull people on, then we clip over the top, right? We're using our goalkeeper to go over the top of the press. 4v4 at the back. Can we reach the second ball? This is what football is today. We can ask ourselves, is that exciting? We're not the only team suffering with this, by the way. No one's going to let Mike Odegaard get the ball in the central areas too often so he can turn around and choose who he passes to. That's just not, it's just not going to happen. We all want the same things. It's what annoys me so much about some of the online discourse. We all want to see the ball flow from the back into Odegaard. He turns around, into Saka, back to Odegaard, maybe back to Saka, side foot cross, Havertz sticks in the net. That's what we all want.
They
should
do that more, Clive, shouldn't they?
They should do, mate. They really should. Because maybe we should have a little chat with them. Maybe we should. You know what I mean? But it sort of frustrates me. But if anything, there's a debate to have. I'm having this debate more and more with more people. Trust me, Johnson and Saturday, I got a lot of advice, right? And people are saying things. Elliot, and you said this before as well. And what it really was saying to me was, do we need to do something different? And you've often said to me, why don't we switch our wingers now and again? I've always gone against it. I've not gone against it, but I've sort of like that. I've hummed it, But was this a day to do that? Was this a day for your double eights, mate? Your pretty boy eights. This is all on the table when you have a nil. Your game model will be questioned when you don't win.
Yeah, why didn't he bring on Eze?
Yeah. We bought Neto in the summer. We should have done that.
Yeah.
Why did we do that? We'd have another winger to bring on. We all want the same things. That's what's annoying me. We can't have everything we want. Tim was absolutely right earlier on about having an extra attacker. I think we need one to add energy into this group, to make us think about ourselves differently and to make other people think about us differently. I've also wrote in the chat, through my whole Arsenal life, we've been one player short. You know, and so let's focus on the ones that we have and recovering them. Because in our front six forwards right now, I think we're probably happy with one. I'm a general statement. Should I say that? Just a general statement. And one's not even being used. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no getting around it. And by the way, this is why it's so hard. You know that Pedro Neto guy you mentioned? You know how many goals he has? The one against us. That's it. 0.5 expected goals in total this whole season. And almost all of it, one shot against us. That's what Pedro Neto has done. Nico Williams, why didn't we get him? You know how many goals Nico Williams has this season? 1 goal. 1 goal from Nico Williams, 0.17 expected goals per 90. And by the way, that's not to say that he might not have been the guy, or Neto might not have been the guy, or don't, go get. This is the hard thing. This is why football will do your brain in. Two things can be true. It can be true that market is hard and finding that player is hard. It is also true we had to do it and we didn't.
How many does Junior Hoylett got? Because I wanted him a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wanted Benteke. Like if I were the director of football, we would have been relegated years ago. But that doesn't mean it isn't obvious to everybody what we needed. And instead, we got a bank manager, left 8. And I mean, Tim, like I'm open to the idea that the players have a big responsibility. So Odegaard was not playing well in this game. Okay, he just wasn't. Something was off. I saw Odegaard do something I've never seen before. Just try to control a ball by the touchline and have it roll out for a throw-in. That just doesn't happen to Martin Odegaard. But he had 3 sweet chances to win this game. Now, we should have created more. Of course we should have created more. But, there is a balance between some days when a team sets out to defend, how do you wreck their plan? You get a goal. That wrecks their plan. And Odegaard had 3 chances in the first half to wreck their plan and didn't. There's a lot of ire being directed at Kai Havertz and Gabriel Martinelli at the moment. Everybody thinks Saka is a superstar, and I tend to agree, and I think he's really unlucky not to have scored. Pickford, who, has alligator arms, somehow managed to get down quickly enough to save brilliantly from Saka at the near post. So, it is what it is. But Kai and Martinelli are looking a little blunt right now, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think there is a tension between looking at the system and looking at the recruitment, but also looking at the players we have. There is sometimes a thing we do, Tim, which is as we see a team developing, we only project improvement. You know what I mean? So we were good last season. Well, Saka will get better, Martinelli will get better, and Kai will get better, and Rice will get better. And that's how we will get better. And what we forget is player development is not only not linear, sometimes it's reverse. Sometimes players fall off. We can think of lots of players. I mean, Phil Foden has fallen off. Okay. Jack Grealish has fallen off. Some of it is the team you go to and the system you go to. But you can look at these players and some of them do better and some of them do worse. And right now, it is my opinion, and no one has to agree with this, that Martinelli has not only not progressed as I hope, but I think he's backslid a bit, and that's hurting us. And Kai Havertz is, he went through a hot run at center forward. He wasn't bought to be center forward, and maybe we're seeing a little bit why. I think he is inconsistently performing at the center forward position. So in those 2 positions in particular, are you sympathetic to the idea that the performances, system aside, are simply not good enough right now?
Of course, absolutely. That is absolutely evidently true. And, you talk about how things can change and all of that. Trossard in particular, obviously he comes on late in this game, so there's a much more general point. But Trossard has over his career generally performed above XG, so you can pit him as a guy who's above XG. But that little run at the end of last season, he went higher than usual over it, so he was wrecking his own curve, if that makes sense. And now I think he's about bob on for XG at the moment. So for him, that's underperformance, right? So little things like that, like these things do just change sometimes, and sometimes it is the run of the ball, which way the wind's blowing or whatever. But none of we gone past the point now where we can really point at that as the reason that it's part of the reason that we're not as close to Liverpool as we could be. But look, the thing we always say, we didn't score in 5 league games last season. I think we're up to 3 already. I think one of the things I said in the column that I wrote last week that I think really emphasizes it, right, is we played 5 Champions League away games in 2024 and we scored 5 goals. So we averaged a goal a game away from home in the Champions League in 2024, but all of them were scored in one game. So we had one game where we scored 5 and 4 where we scored 0. So it is technically true that we averaged a goal a game, but it's just that one game against Sporting where it came together. We got the early goal. It came together. We slapped them 5-1. And so, just engineering that moment. And, in this game as well, I just had the sense, and I do get this with Arsenal sometimes, when that early goal doesn't come, I do get that. Like I said, I don't feel like we win many games 1-0 with a late goal. Or anything like that. It feels like when we win games like Forest, Southampton, Leicester at home this season, I think probably more Forest than Leicester, we get that first half goal and then we just go and roll them over 3-0. Whereas I feel like we don't get as many of those kind of the pressure built and it was 0-0 and then with 5-10 minutes to go, we nick one and 1-0. And in this game, I just didn't get that feel of momentum, and actually it was almost the reverse. Like the longer the game went on, the less I felt we'd score. And I know I always say this, but whenever the game states like this, with about 10 minutes to go, I have that honest check-in with myself where I kind of just say to myself, do you think we're going to score? And always acknowledging that whatever my answer is, I could say yes, definitely, and it just doesn't go in for whatever reason. And sometimes I'll say, no, it's not coming, and it does. But I did that honest check-in with myself on about 81 minutes. And I was like, no, we haven't had a shot in about 20 minutes that I can remember.
Can I ask you a tough question, a painful question?
Go for it.
And look, revisionism is real easy. And I want to be careful to indicate to anyone that I'm trying to revise anything because I'm not. And maybe I'll get a chance to explain this in a few minutes. But if it had been Smith Rowe for Marino and Nelson for Martinelli, maybe if it had to have been Vieira for Odegaard instead of Nwaneri, I'll tell you this much. I think we would have been better. Now, to be clear, I think we moved out the right players, but we certainly didn't bring in what we needed to replace what we moved out. We made our squad worse this summer in terms of the threat we can bring on from the bench and our ability to change games when we need a goal. That is my opinion. And it is a shame. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean we would have gone on to 1, but I feel that the subs blunted us, and they were really the only subs we had to make. Clive?
I totally agree with that. We seemed to get weaker once the subs were made. Although at the time, I was hoping we were going to get stronger. And I was hoping we were going to score until literally the 94th minute. I thought, maybe we're not going to score. That's the sort of fan that I am. And by the way, all the players that we let go last year, and I've seen videos of Granit Xhaka this today, are all getting better because we didn't score. It's
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Honestly,
same way Nwaneri would have looked better if he hadn't come on. You know what I mean?
If Nwaneri didn't come on and trust me, I'll tell you, we'll be getting this day if not trusting the kids.
Yep.
When you don't score, you everything's up for grabs, mate.
Yeah,
everything's up for grabs, and that's where we are. So I didn't hear anybody saying Vieira. Well, we sat next to each other in the summer, so we know about Vieira. And by the way, I like all the players when they're playing well. I really do. I want them to stick it in our net for us, but at the moment in time, we have to work with what we have. And I'm more concerned about the dialing back of a couple and the disappearing of a couple. You got a bit out of form, maybe a bit flat, but we have people that have disappeared in our front line.
To be fair, Mikel brought on our $250,000 a week number 9. You have a right to believe that should be a difference maker. And Paul, that wasn't a difference maker,
Yeah, but my biggest issue with the subs was you say we brought on like for like, and I get that, but we broke the thing that was working, which was the right-hand side. We brought on Nwaneri at a time when Odegaard. And you like, are they like for like? Kinda not. I mean, nobody does what Odegaard does, right?
It's like
Nwaneri
for like
does.
in the sense that his role and Odegaard's role, like Marino has a different role from Odegaard. If he brought on Nwaneri for Odegaard, I mean for Marino, that's very much a change in what you're trying to do in those zones.
Well, it's a left-footed creative person on the same area of the pitch who do things very, very differently. Like, Nwaneri's superpower is not Odegaard's, and
That's
I
true.
think we needed a safe cracker at the time, right? A guy with his ear up against the safe, turning the dial, twiddling. Were you going to say, Tim?
I was going to say that chance against Leicester, was it, when he came on and he drove in from the right?
Yeah.
I think Arteta had that playing in his head. I think that's what he was thinking. And that exact chance where he comes in and he smashes the ball at goal. I think that was the picture he had in his head when he brought Nwaneri on.
Yeah, and had he done that, he'd have been right. But I didn't see that space against Everton at that point in the game. And like, Nwaneri's never done this. Like, everybody's like, oh, playing against a Sean Dyche 11 where they're all sat in, still early in the game, relatively early in the game, he hasn't done that. So it was a big ask. But the like for like thing is really where I'm going. So we had taken apart the right-hand side, because the next move we made shortly after that was we brought on Partey for Timber, moved Timber to the left. We took Marino off. We did. We took Marino off. We took Rice off. We had Partey and Jorginho. We basically had 11 players on the pitch trying to make something happen. But we took apart the right-hand side, the thing that was starting to work. It was basically Saka and players he doesn't normally play with. Partey's sitting back, so he doesn't have the overlapping fullback. So I don't really... We went like for like, but we took everything apart. We switched Timber to the left-hand side, which... all the relationships are now different and gone, and his left eight is who at that point. You got everybody on. You got Jesus. You got there's no structure at that point. It was basically I just think we went from having something that had some structure and was starting to work to we got 10 players who are quite attacking and they're going to attack. And what are you reduced to then? You're reduced to banging in crosses at that point, or turnovers, but we just took it apart.
I really agree with that. And I remember Arsene Wenger used to say, like, one of the reasons he waited to make substitutions is he wanted to see if the players on the pitch could solve the problem, right? Could they solve the problem? And like, one of the problems you have when you make 5 outfield substitutions, which is what we do, is you've completely changed the rhythm in the organization and the automatisms of everyone on the pitch, and they have to relearn it. And like, sometimes that gives the defense something else to think about, and sometimes it just falls apart. In this case, I think it just fell apart. Now, I do like the idea of Nwaneri, like, hey, we're not breaking them down. Maybe someone who could just turn and shoot, turn his man, get to the top of the box, take a shot, it deflects, it falls to someone in the box. But like, obviously it just didn't work out that way. And to your point, if he does do that, it's a genius sub, but he didn't do that. And so it's not. And I think the other thing you have to bear in mind is our best player is Bukayo Saka. He's the player that's most likely to win you the game. And the problem with taking Odegaard off is you blunt Bukayo Saka a bit, especially then also when you bring Partey in at right back, he's not going to overlap as much. So like, you move Timber out of there. I think the pod on the right of Timber, Saka, and Odegaard, even if it wasn't its best day, is still your best path to getting the goal that wins you the game. So he took a big gamble ripping that pod apart. Clive, you, and then we'll switch gears a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to... Everything you said is spot on. But let me just try to explain. Let me just try to explain maybe why he did it, right? So, Miles Lewis-Skelly, rigor mortis was setting in, mate. His legs were stiff. He's a 1 hour player at the moment. Had to come off. That was a pre-planned sub.
Yep.
Pre-planned.
Because he played midweek too. I mean, this is an 18-year-old kid playing at the highest level at in every 3 days.
Exactly. And I'm pleased to see him start. I'm personally, I thought he might go Keyfield because Everton are quite big, and I'm a scaredy cat thinking they might do something against us.
No, they didn't show up.
They didn't show up to attack, right? So he's gone for Miles Lewis-Skelly. It was the right pick because it's an on-the-ball game, right? So obviously Declan Rice, who never comes off the pitch. The only time he came off the pitch normally, apart from the other time when he came off, recently with his foot, was against Spurs at halftime, and we know what happened then. We drew 2-2 in that game where we would have won if he'd have stayed on the pitch. So that's not something he wants to do. He's doing it because he's injured. Odegaard never comes off the pitch. If I've got a criticism of the manager, I like seeing him come off more. You know, particularly when he's had a knock. He never comes off the pitch. And by the way, Elliot, he just walked off the pitch. It wasn't like, oh my God, what are you taking me off for? He knew he was coming off. That could have also been pre-planned because he was not right. And you're absolutely right. He did things in that game where his touch was off. He was not himself, right? And then it comes back to what we do thereafter. We brought on our number 9, right? And that actually made us weaker in the central areas of attack. And so I walked out the ground thinking, you know what? I can explain all this, but trust me, people were telling me I got it wrong. I got it wrong. We should have done a million things. And therein lies the debate, right? So, yeah, I can explain it, Elliot, but I'm not sure I agree with all of it, what I just said, but I can explain it away.
Can I just come in quickly on the subs because I think it's a big part where Arteta was very culpable on the day. I think Everton did this thing right, and I saw this particularly in the second half because it was on my side. But they had like Decore and Ndiaye. They really put them over on that side because they're not stupid. They know that's where Arsenal build, and they really pressed us over. And I think what Arteta wanted with Nwaneri was someone who could drive out. Perhaps a bit more physically than Odegaard usually does, and I could see this where I was, and this really didn't work. But I think I can appreciate the thinking behind it. Nwaneri was stood on the touchline the whole time, and actually that caused us a problem because it meant Saka and Nwaneri were on the same line, and so you don't get that connection. Whereas Odegaard will stand a little bit inside of Saka and they'll swap. It was like we had 2 right wingers, and particularly with Partey on at right back, you don't have that overlapper. And I think what Arsenal wanted was someone who could drive out of that space. And it really, really didn't work. It completely fell flat. But I think my other problem with it is if Rice has to come off, which I assume, Arteta said he did have to, don't take Odegaard off at the same time. You've been forced to take one midfielder off. Fair enough, it happens. Don't take 2 of them off. And then when the third one's Merino, who's having a bit of a 6 out of 10 game and hasn't played many games for us, I just think it was too much at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's right. I want to talk a little bit about Sterling, about our attacking options, about the transfer window past and future, a little bit about our goals for the season. So still quite a bit to get to. But I think as a palate cleanser, what could be better than to tell you about some brands? So I'll do this quickly. Should I do it quickly? Let's do it quickly. Here we go. We'll start with NordVPN. It's really this simple. If you want to be able to watch videos that aren't available in your area, then you need NordVPN. NordVPN lets you watch things that are not available in your area. You simply click a button and now you're browsing another area. And once you're browsing another area, you can watch those videos. So if you want to watch the geo-locked videos on social media that you see, or you want to watch like a match highlights show of the day, you can watch it by clicking and being in another area. You can use it on iPhone or Android or PC or Mac. It doesn't matter. Get NordVPN. You're also going to get threat protection, which is helpful for football fans watching on dodgy links. So go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months on top. It's completely risk-free. Nord 30-day money back guarantee. Go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now. And Manscaped. Normally we're talking about your privates, but we're not going to talk about your privates. We're going to talk about your face. Your face is not your privates. Let's remember that. You can go to manscaped.com and use promo code ArsenalVision, get 20% off free shipping. Perfect holiday present, perfect Christmas present. You can get the Chairman Pro. Chairman Pro is a great face shaver. I use it actually. It is skin safe technology. It has 2 different blades, so you can go slim or you can go all the way just to stubble. It works in the shower, so you can use it wet dry. It has 70 minutes of battery life. It has an LED screen that tells you when it needs to be recharged, and it has a locking button. It also has the pivoting head, so you can get around all those areas you need to. It is a phenomenal shaver. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy. Therapy just happened to be online. Look, do therapy. I got a message from someone the other day saying, you know what, I'm trying BetterHelp. I wanted to do therapy, but I was always a little intimidated by it. Now I'm doing it. I'm glad I'm doing it. I think you should do it. Therapy is important, especially around the holidays. A lot of people get depressed, and this is a good time to get some help. Sometimes you can't get to a therapist, drive to their office, drive back. So now you can do it online. Makes it easy, makes it accessible. You can do it camera on, camera off. Find your comfort this December with BetterHelp. It's betterhelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. It's betterhelp.com/vision. Do it now. And finally, Shopify. If you want to create an e-commerce site, Shopify is the best one to let you put it on Facebook, to let you put it on Instagram, let you put it on TikTok, let you put it on Twitter. You can put it on all these different platforms. It gives you all the cart management, so you can say, hey, while you're checking out with this, maybe you want to get that. It's also going to make it look professional, because if you're going to sell something on an e-commerce site, you want it to be professional, because people are going to shop with you. They need to look at your site and be like, wow, that's a really professional site. I would shop with this person. Plus, you don't have to deal with shipping and taxes and stuff like that, because it takes care of all of it. So if you want to do it, now is the time. Sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision now to get your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do not go. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
It was a little sloppy, but I think, you know what? You got 4 great brands there. You got it in time that suits everybody's needs. We're good. We can move on. So, Clive, Raheem Sterling. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend Raheem Sterling's been good. Yeah, who? Raheem Sterling was a disastrous signing, and we never should have done it. We can all agree on that, fine. But I kind of got a contrarian take on this. If there is a thing Raheem Sterling can still do, I think he can still create chaos around the box. I think he can still make a little darting run. I think he can do that sort of stuff. I kind of wanted Sterling on for Martinelli instead of Trossard. Trossard instead of Jesus maybe, or instead, get those players around the box exchanging passes. The one thing, Everton weren't attacking. Sterling has not been tracking back. Fine. But in a settled defense, the one player I actually think other than Saka that maybe could unsettle a settled defense is Raheem Sterling. If you're not going to use him here against a team showing no attacking ambition, where all you really need is a little magic around the box, you're not going to use him, period. If you're not going to use him here, you're not going to use him, period. And I'm curious if you agree, because this is a rare time I have found myself thinking this sets up kind of nicely for Raheem Sterling.
Yes, I agree with you again, Elliot. I mean, this is not good podcasting, right? Because me and you're not arguing, right? So, so we all have our thing, don't we? So, I agree with you. I would have brought Trossard into the central areas, maybe for Mourinho, right, and play him almost as that interior. Raheem Sterling is a give and go merchant. He can't do much, but what he can do at the moment, that's a bit disrespectful. He is very...
Here, let me say it so it comes from my mouth. He's a bit of a give and go merchant. He can't do much, but what he can do, okay, go. I'm fine owning it. It's fine.
He's a sprinter, isn't he? His key skill is his start, his acceleration. He can really go. And so when you're playing against deep blocks, he's a 1-2 merchant, bang, go. And he can get him behind. When he played for City, all the time they played in crowd scenes, didn't they? So he's a small space player. And so, again, Sterling off the left, sort of Trossard inside. And these are all Mr. Captain Hindsight stuff, right? So honestly, it's literally that. But I do think it's a valid point, and I won't say too long because I know Paul's got to go soon. And so I'll probably leave it there. I think it was an option, as there were other options, many other options, but we chose the ones we did. Some of that forced, I believe, but some of that maybe we missed up. We messed up, shall we say? We messed up.
Yeah, Paul, I want to get your thoughts on that and just the idea that this was our roll of the dice in the summer, and it's come up snake eyes. But do you feel that there was a chance here, or maybe we just have to accept that this was a miss?
Well, I think your analysis is right that this is the kind of game, if not this one. I'm intrigued when Clive says that, it's his initial burst. I'm like, doesn't have it when it's going the other way, does he?
Well, that's an effort thing, isn't it?
You can keep those defensive tactics to yourself, mate. I'm all about attack now.
So, but
finally won Clive over after all these years. Now he wants Eze and he wants Nico and he wants the attackers. Get rid of this Mikel Merino, Declan Rice nonsense. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah. So this is absolutely the Raheem Sterling game. We didn't use him. I don't think that was. I almost think it wasn't so much the personnel at the end of the day. Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus. Yeah, look, I'm sure we all have issues about every one of those. I don't think that was it, though. I could quibble. I agree, the perfect player probably and all of that would have been Raheem Sterling, but he doesn't seem to be doing it. Weirdly, he seems very happy among the crowd of players. He seems to be quite patiently waiting his turn. I don't know what he knows that we don't know. It's December and he's still waiting his turn and seems happy enough in part of the crowd. But this was a Raheem Sterling game. But I don't think, between those 4 names, that was the issue here. I think what my issue was. I'm sure Mikel had his reasons. But I think we took apart a game that was starting to work, that we were starting to turn the screw. And what came after that, I'm with Tim. I did not feel a goal was coming. I thought it could happen. I felt that in the first half too. I think we had some good chances. I didn't feel we came in at halftime, them having got away with the one. even if our XGs were of the okay variety. But there was a period, as I mentioned before, for whatever 15 plus minutes where I'm like, there's a goal coming. We just keep this coming, and a goal is coming. And we took that apart, possibly for reasons that the manager could but can't explain to us.
Yeah. Well, I let's find something to disagree about, but we're gonna have to do it after Paul is gone. So Paul's gonna leave his he's gonna leave his window up so that this recording survives for the future. But Paul, thanks for joining us.
Woohoo!
We got 3/4 of an everybody on it together pod, so that's good. Tim, I don't need anything from you on Sterling so much. I think we can look at it more this way. I do think Paul has a point, right? Which is, who would want to be a manager? Because the hardest thing is to decide between patience and panic. If you choose patience, people could say you sat on your hands and you didn't change it. Why didn't you change it? If you choose panic, people can say it was starting to turn in our favor and you destroyed it with your subs. That's why you get the big money. That's why you sit in the big chair. And I think this was probably a game to choose patience over panic. But I think the reason for that is we just don't have a lot of confidence in our opportunity to change it and the quality. And like, football will break your brain. It is easy to rage and scream and be upset. And I do that. And you can listen to the instant reaction and hear it. But you have to balance it with reality. And the reality is this is the same team that in consecutive seasons broke its own goal scoring record. So it's like, on the one hand, we all acknowledge the attack is not good enough. And on the other hand, all you have to do is point to the last 2 seasons and say it's been the best attack in the Premier League ever for us. So what's changing? And I think what's changing is football is always changing. And you always have to be steel manning yourself against where you think the potential weakness could be. And I do think this is a squad building exercise that has always prioritized steel manning the defensive side of the game over the attacking side. You simply cannot look at our transfer activity and not come away with the conclusion that we haven't really prioritized attack. And if you look at Liverpool are a case study in obviously just going back to the well for attacking players. But the team that's a case study in it is Chelsea. Chelsea's defense sucks. Their goalkeeper sucks. And as it stands, at least right now, they're currently ahead of us in the table. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not going to accept any of this Maresca. Oh, it's too soon for us. We're not. When you spend $1.5 billion on your squad, it's never too soon. If this was Roman, you'd have one season to win it, and then you'd be out if you didn't. Okay. But Chelsea are a case study because you know what they did? They bought attackers. Then they bought more attackers. Then they bought some more attackers. And then they bought some more attackers. And then they bought some more attackers. So like, it's not easy. It costs a lot. And when you get it wrong, it can hurt you. Just look at how the Pepe transfer worked out for us a few years where we were in the wilderness. What do you think right now in terms of, are you prepared to say this past summer was a critical, pivotal moment in how we progress, and the decision to go for Calafiori and Marino with a Sterling loan just looks like poor execution, poor prioritization?
No, I'm not prepared to say that.
I love it. Tell me why.
I think there's a whole load of context around this that, and look, so there's a whole load of context that for me is indisputable. It then just comes down to how much of a thing do you think it is, and do you think that even given all this context that things still should have happened? So let's assess the kind of case about not buying many attackers and things like that. 2 of our starting attackers on Saturday were at the club when Arteta arrived. We've got one absolute superstar in Saka, who, by the way, is very much my case for why Arteta is not stifling our attack, because he seems to be fine. Doesn't seem to have stifled him, our tactics or anything like that, which pushes me more towards it being a personnel thing. So Saka and Martinelli are already there. And this is almost like a bit of a warning, I think. The other context is the last time we rebuilt our attack, we did it horribly and it took years to fix. We spent loads of money on Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe, and it flunked hard. And we got stuck with those players. And that, first of all, that spilled over into Arteta's reign. So he couldn't really do anything up front because we still had those players and we couldn't shift them. He had those kind of 2 new young players coming through. So at least for the first half more of Arteta's kind of reign, there's that. And that, by the way, is possibly informs some of Arsenal's caution in the market around attackers, because like even Sesko, right? that was going to be a punt. That was because I completely hear the risk, and I do think we are probably in. We're just going to have to take a punt at this point on someone, whether it's whoever's on the market. But Šeško was going to be a punt, right? That was a future. There's nothing on the market. I'm not going to go over again what other teams didn't do in the market, because I think it shows you the market's very dry for attackers, and I just don't see anyone that moved this summer that I thought, should have got them. I do also think with Saka, having one really elite attacker, actually, it's not a problem, but in a recruitment sense can be. Because, for example, if you're going to talk to me about like Cole Palmer going to Chelsea or Neto going to Chelsea, we can't get those players because they play the position Saka plays. They're not coming to us. Like, Palmer left City because he couldn't get in their team. He's got less chance of getting in our team because of who we have there. So, like, in one sense, and this is the problem for Sterling as well, I think Sterling's better on the left probably, but we got two left wingers, and we've kind of brought Sterling to be that Reece Nelson. Well, sometimes he'll play on the right, but we're not taking our right winger off because he's the most likely person to score a goal. So I do think, as well as Sterling just not doing it, I do think there is that context as well. It's like, well, he's not coming on for Saka, is he? But that, like, there's just a whole heap of context. I am at this point, and I don't think that this is irreversible. By the way, like, yeah, you can talk to me about, like, maybe we should have just got Osimhen on loan, for example, and just like had that striker. I can't give you a case against that. And my default position is not to try and defend everything anyway. And I think we have probably come to that. We're just going to have to take a swing at something time. But that's what we did with Lacazette, right? Wenger could have signed Lacazette any of the 3 summers before we did it. And he did it because he was like, I'm sick of looking for strikers. I couldn't get Benzema. I couldn't get Higuain. I couldn't get Suarez. Going to bash the Lacazette button. And actually, that was a bad decision in the end. I completely understand why they did it, but it was bad. We were lumped with him for 5 years, and he was not that good.
Well, the bigger problem is we went and spent on striker again one window later.
Well, yeah.
And got the guy we probably should have gotten initially, and then we couldn't spend
Indeed,
elsewhere. So,
when we probably should have taken a beat for one more window. I think Aubameyang was a market opportunity they didn't think would probably come up. So this stuff is hard. And
it's
listen,
very hard.
I do have sympathy with that. We should have just like gone for Gyökeres. How do you pronounce his name? Sorry, Gyökeres. Yeah. We should have done 100 million on him or whatever. Like, fine. But I think
I don't agree, but I hear it.
Yeah. But we have to acknowledge that that's a massive risk, and it might not work. And if it doesn't work at the sort of money attackers go for, like, we couldn't get rid of Jesus this summer. Liverpool very apparently wanted rid of Nunez, who they bought for 100 million, but they couldn't. Like, if you get it wrong, you can't buy another attacker unless you're Chelsea and you do some sleight of hand stuff. But it's hard.
Look, here's why I think we got it wrong a bit is, you know what? I actually think the smart play, when there's no obvious Declan Rice type forward, right? There's no 100 million spend it. It's a sure thing player. Like when City got Haaland, right? The surest of sure things, but stay humble also. I do think that's when you do the Trossard type deal. And you do go and see if you can get Matoma out of Brighton or Mbeumo out of Brentford, right? Or Eze out of... Right. And you say, you know what? That's not a guy that's going to score 20 goals for us and make us a 95-point team. But the way we're going to get to be a 95-point team is just have one more really solid Premier League caliber player who can come in on a day when our other guy, like when Martinelli's off it and Matoma isn't, or Martinelli's off it and Mbeumo is, and like Sterling clearly isn't that guy. Now, look, I don't know if a Matoma was doable or an Mbeumo was doable. You know, those clubs aren't exactly looking to slide down the ladder. They're looking to slide up the ladder. But as we know, players are also looking after their career. And when they're 27 years old and an Arsenal comes calling and they're at a Brighton or a Brentford, sometimes they do things like Leo Trossard threw a fit to get a move. Right now, I'm not saying that's a great thing, but he became a very important player for us. Now he's crossing 30. And if you want to ask me what we're missing, we're kind of missing. We're not missing Gyökeres. We're missing 27-year-old Leo Trossard. We're missing one more guy who could have come into that game who's not 17, who's not 32, who's a good, effective Premier League level player. Look at the players scoring goals in the Premier League right now. It's not a who's who of the Ballon d'Or list, guys. It's Chris Wood. It's Mbeumo. It's Matoma. It's João Pedro. You know what I mean? Like, it's those guys.
I guess the issue here that we're probably getting at is, have we upgraded on Nketiah and Nelson? Does Gabriel Jesus, our current backup striker, in his current shape, look any better than Eddie Nketiah? Not really. He actually reminds me a lot of Nketiah, where he starts a game sometimes, you think, oh, signs of light. Oh, no, dead.
It's gone again.
Yeah, no, it's gone again. And like Sterling is Nelson. And so, I suppose that is the, have we raised the floor of the attack? And you're going to have to overpay to do that. But we've overpaid for players. We overpaid for Ben White. We paid a lot more for him than we wanted to. Ramsdale.
Tim, when you are trying to go from 75 points to 85 points, there's a lot of ways to get there. When you are trying to go from 89 points to 92 points, there's very few ways to get there, and you probably have to pay for all of them, overpay for all of them, Clive.
Yeah. In August, I thought we had upgraded on Eddie and Nelson. I thought we had.
I did too. Yep.
I thought we had, and I didn't see this coming. I just didn't see this coming. I didn't see the drop-off for Jesus. Mate, I saw him in the summer, and I was convinced he could have a fantastic season. Right, Sterling?
I'm an idiot. I called him my breakout player because I watched preseason and I fell for it. I'm an idiot. What do I know? Nothing.
Everyone's in my timeline telling me they saw it coming. Well, I didn't. So if they're clever than me, that's absolutely fine. Right, so I did not see this drop-off coming. Just didn't see it. I did think there was an opportunity. I did think when James read an article about him potentially being on the market, I thought, that's a sign, right? Yeah. And so my mind has always been open around this player since then. But I'll be honest, what I saw in my eyes was a sharp player. And Sterling for Nelson, that made a lot of sense. The money was the same. It's what else we could do. And I wanted, say, a Sesko, for example, but I didn't want him to start. I wanted him to backfill Kai Havertz because I knew he can't keep going. Right, so to have the option of having somebody with a similar profile, size-wise, but can actually transition, I really was excited by that. But he's not ready. He's raw. He's only just started scoring now. So it was never a starting option to upgrade us. I think that maybe the bigger discussion area is, what is an Arteta attacker? I genuinely don't know. I can see his system. I can see how he plays. I can see his principles. I can see how he attacks. I see when he wants to attack, what areas he wants to attack in. I can see the defenders he wants. I can see everything about him apart from that bit there. What is an Arteta attacker? And I don't know what that player is at the moment, because we've really yet to invest in that area massively, apart from Jesus, which we were all done at the time. Because where our belief structure was at that moment, to have someone come out of the best team in the world and come to us, oh my God, this is going to change things. And it did. Do you know what I mean? But apart from that, somebody that he knows and have worked with for 3 years, I don't know what that player is and what it looks like. And I think that's the final piece for this team. It is the final piece. It's the final piece for many people listening.
Yeah, I mean, let me read. Yeah, please tell.
I was just going to add on that really quickly, and that also plays into Martinelli and Trossard are our left wing options. Totally different players. Havertz and Jesus are our centre forwards. Totally different players, and we've stumbled on some things, and we've not quite pulled some things off in the market. I think that plays into what you're saying, Clive.
And just reading some of the names off the top scorer list in the league, like some of them are at big clubs, players you're not going to get, players you don't want, players that are too expensive, but like Mbeumo, and he's 25. Matheus Cunha, he's 25. Johan Wissa, he's 28. Right? I mean, Liam Delap, that's an interesting one. He's a good player, and he's young, and he's going to go somewhere, and he's probably going to be good somewhere. Why not? They could always use another attacker, right? You have Raul Jimenez. Obviously, he's 33. You're not going to go for that player. Justin Kluivert, he's 25. So I don't know. I mean, I don't, Jared Bowen, right? Like Mohamed Kudus.
28, 29, Jared Bowen, is he?
Like, and my point isn't that any of these guys are the star player. None of them are Haaland. None of them are Salah.
And none of them are bargains, Elliot.
And none of them are bargains. But it is the question of like, here's what I would say. Finding something to add to an 89-point team that keeps you at 89 points or even takes you over 90. It's not going to be a bargain. It's not going to be Eddie Nketiah started 10 games for an 89-point Arsenal that broke its scoring record. He cannot get on the pitch for Crystal Palace. Okay? It's hard. This shit is hard, but it is also the job. And Clive, like, I do look at it now, and I believe that people hate this, but I really believe it. I think Arsenal's game model is as good as anybody in the league. I think we play football as well as anyone in the league. I think we are coached brilliantly. We give almost nothing away. We have the best defense in the league. We've scored 2 fewer goals than Liverpool, granted with a game in hand. We are good from set pieces, which is all coaching predominantly. We look at the game versus Everton, 72% possession, all the ball in their area, 48 penalty box touches. That's the kind of stuff good teams do. You conceded 1 shot, right? That's the stuff good teams do. But football is about putting the ball in the net, and that is the hardest thing to do in football. I think we have shot-shy players, and I think we have players that are not great at sticking the ball in the back of the net. I don't think we have any player who I expect at any point in their career will score 20 goals in a season other than Bukayo Saka. That's it. Yep. And like, if you look at the teams that win titles, when Liverpool did it, they had Salah and Mane, and they were both 20 goal scorers or thereabouts. City, we all know about Erling Haaland, but they had Kun Aguero once upon a time. Like you have to have that player. And I just don't know. I mean, hell, when Leicester won the title, Jamie Vardy did it. And oh, by the way, they had a guy on the right in Riyad Mahrez, who's one of the better wingers that's played in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And then they had a midfielder who's quite good too. But where that's the thing for me, Clive, is if you can't get it out of your academy and you can't get it in the market, you know what you can't magic in football? You can magic defense. You can magic ball progression. You can't magic goals. You talent goals. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense, the way I've said that?
Yeah. I was going to say something, but I lost my thought process there. But for example,
sorry.
Last year, Man City, they were struggling to score. Flipping Guardiola comes along and scores critical goals in the running. Right? You think, oh my God, they found a left back to score. Do you know what I mean? Foden would take shots the edge of the area. Foden can't pass it 3 yards now. Right? So it is difficult. I think we're at a stage now where we have to go to Harrods, mate. We have to go to Harrods. And we have to come back with an Isaac from the top shelf. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Yeah. That's where we are. And that's what we're saving for, something like that. We have to go to Harrods. We can't speculate. Where we are in the project now, Tim really spoke well on it earlier on what actually happened and the recovery process we had to go through. Not making excuses. It's just a sign of the times. The markets were dead then. COVID just come along. Teams were recovering their monies. They weren't going to give us money for Lacazette and Aubameyang and all these people. So we had to get them off the books, right? And then recover, and go young to recover. Right? So now we have this team that have had 2 years or so of finishing second. And if you put Rice and Saka in there, they finished second at international tournaments as well at the same time. Right? So there's a few people in our group that need to feel the winner's medal to know why they're doing all of this, why they're sacrificing. And you have to give them something for their careers. And that isn't speculation, I'm afraid. That isn't speculating. That is a dead cert. This is it. 100. Bosh. There you go. Can you stand either at centre forward or on our left wing, please? And make sure we have some symmetry to our attack, which we lack. And then see if you can quadruple Saka now. See if you can do that now. Because I don't think you can anymore. Because we're going to hurt you on the other side and vice versa. It's the last thing we have to do. And I'm guessing it's an Isak because that's who I like. For those who listen to me for all these years, I like these wing forward types. And that's it. That's what I like. Other people are saying, no, we need Gyökeres. No, we need this, we need that. We need something to freshen this group up offensively to create problems for the analysts with the laptops and also to make people think when they go to training, there's somebody else here that wants my shirt. That's the truth, and that's the game. That is the game, and we need to get that edge back into our group.
Tim, I guess the hard thing is that trying to have your analysis match the reality, not just of one day, but of the bigger picture. And when I look at the bigger picture, I see a team that put 5 past West Ham and 3 past Forest and 5 past Sporting. What was the last Arsenal team that put 5 past anybody away in Europe? That broke its scoring record last season. I don't want to be a Pollyanna, and I don't want to overlook the defects. And at the same time, I want to check ourselves and make sure that we're not falling victim of form being the driver of conclusions. But I really look at it and I say, if we think Martinelli's badly out of form and we want a team to pick next weekend for Palace away, forget the League Cup tie in the midweek for a minute. Do I think Leo off the left is he's the only guy. That's the option. Kai's going to start at center forward again. You know why? We don't have another one, because Jesus is not a guy you can start right now. And I know, we stayed fit, we got on a run, and we battered bad teams last season. And it is interesting because if you look back, I was reading Discord messages from this time last season. There was a lot of anger. We went 1 win in 5, roughly this time, slightly later than this time last season.
Elliot, can I hold you?
Yeah.
Can I hold you there? That's exactly what I was going to say earlier. I wanted to. Do you remember 77 touches in the box, West Ham, where we lost 2-0?
2-0 loss. Yeah.
We had 48 touches in the box this time, and we didn't score a goal. And I remember thinking that West Ham game, we ain't going to score again. It's just not going to happen. We just can't do it. Our attack's stale. I bet if we listened to our podcast back then, it was very, very similar.
Remember the click? When are we going to click? It's not clicking. That was the whole talk. Yeah.
The Liverpool home game, we were unfortunate. Lost 2-0. Flipping hell, it's over. And then what happened?
It was over. We never won again.
Then we won 16 out of 18, right? And I didn't see 16 out of 18 coming. I just didn't see it coming.
Well, and this is the problem, right? Though the change we made, principally, we made a few, but one of the big changes we made is we moved Kai to center forward. We dropped Eddie. And, I don't want to make it all about Eddie and all about, but Kai, found some form at center forward. Right now, that's not happening. I just think
the worry is, Elliot, how do we reinvent?
Yes, exactly.
Because we reinvented that time, and I'm not sure the reinvention, where it's coming from. Maybe fullback. That's all I can think of.
We planted our flag too. Let's be honest. Mikel looked at this team and thought, I can get Calafiori in at left back. He is a dynamic player in both ends, and I can get Mikel Merino in the left 8, and he maybe has a little bit more intuition around the box than Rice does, and I'll get more goals that way. And by the way, that's a perfectly reasonable way to do it if you don't think you can find the attacker. Unfortunately, Calafiori hasn't been able to stay fit, and Merino, I don't think yet has shown that the theory of the case is working out. So you want to say, how could we be reinvented? Calafiori could get fit. Merino could start to really click in that area, and suddenly those connections work and look better, and the theory of the case comes to fruition. There's a path to it. But Tim, I want to just zoom out for a second now on the season and on the league, because this is the problem. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of frustration. You set high expectations, and if you fall short of them, you can be very angry. But let's be clear. We are not shit. We are not shit. We are currently 3rd in the Champions League table. 3rd. And we are the bookies' 2nd favorite to win that tournament. Now, people are going to roll their eyes out of their head and be like, great, what's that get us? Are we going to win that tournament? I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. But somehow, someone thinks we're good enough to be 2nd favorites to win the Champions League, which I would be willing to bet in my entire lifetime we have never been 2nd favorites to win the Champions League at this stage of a season. And we are a distant outlier for the title, but not totally gone yet. So I am not prepared to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm wondering if you are prepared to look and say, it is about the cups, and we probably just have to accept that we've dropped too many points and maybe use the league season as a way to sort of redefine who we are, figure out what works best, and focus on the cups,
Yeah, I don't think players and teams think like that. I don't think they can think like that. A thought I've had over, I guess, the last few weeks, maybe the last month, 6 weeks or so is, and again, sometimes we can conflate how and what we think with how and what players should be thinking and all of that, because obviously they'll go into a different headspace. But I just wonder whether we need to. It's difficult to tell a fan base what to do, and actually it's sort of inconsequential anyway. So it sounds like a kind of weird thing to say, but I wonder if we've just got to stop looking at Liverpool for a little while and sort ourselves out. And again, I don't know whether the players are doing that. I don't know whether the team are doing that, but it feels like this. We're looking at Liverpool and we're, and I just wonder if we've got to reset that a little bit and just go, right, like just let's forget about that for a minute and let's fix ourselves first. And then let's think about the title race, if indeed we're anywhere near it in February, March, April or whatever. And because that's ostensibly what happened last season, right? They had that reset moment in Dubai. They reset some things. Maybe some injuries kind of helped in a way, like Jesus getting injured. Again, doing his knees again, like forced us to put Havertz up front. And, it feels like at that point we weren't looking at Man City. Maybe, like I came out of that West Ham game last season thinking, well, we can't win the league now. And then, just needing that reset moment. But again, you can't really tell supporters what to do. And does that actually have any impact anyway? But in terms of the Cups, I don't think any team can or should. Like, I think it's impossible to focus on the Cups. I don't think you can do that. It's too much of a kind of crapshoot. I do think winning something's important though for this group, because that 2020 FA Cup, it does not belong to this group at all. Not one single player in this group. Saka has a hand on it. He scored some goals in the early rounds of that competition, but the FA Cup in 2020 doesn't. It belongs to the club, not to this group of players. And I do think there is something. I'm not saying throw our entire lot in with the League Cup, and I still want to see a rotated team on Wednesday night. Not like 11 school children, but I want to see a rotated team. But at the same time, when I look at Man City, when Guardiola started, they won the League Cup like 3 years out of 4 years out of 5. They valued it. I don't think they value it anymore. I don't think they really care about it because it served its purpose for them. And like Mourinho, when he went to Chelsea first time, hoovered that trophy up a couple of times because he wanted the group to feel like, to get that kind of taste. And I think this is maybe going too far back and too much has changed in terms of an analogy. But, Clive, you'll remember winning the League Cup in 87 and everything that teed up. Again, different time, so who can say? But I do think it is important for this team to win something this year, even if it's not the league. And I even go back to 2002, 2003, where we threw the league away and it was so disappointing. But we won the FA Cup at the end. And I remember Wenger saying after that final, we needed this. Like, we needed to feel like we're winners and we're a good team, because what happened in the league could have convinced us we're not. So I do think it is time for this group to win something. I don't think you can sit there and go, let's just focus on the Cups. I just don't think it works like that, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I think one thing that's also driving frustration is like there are 2 first-time managers above us in the table. And so you're getting a lot of, what phase are they in? We're in phase 4. They're in phase 1. Reminds me a little what people were saying about Ange this time last season, by the way. What phase is he in? But can we just be honest about making comments that are divorced from reality for a second? The phase you are in is related to the squad that you have. Okay? If Mikel got sacked this summer, that's not happening. But let's say that happened. Would you say the new manager is in phase 1? No. He'd have a team ready to compete for the Premier League right away. And he'd be expected to. If we sacked Mikel this summer, again, I'm saying this as a thought experiment because that's not happening. But if we did that and the new manager came in and got 68 points, would anybody be sitting here saying phase 1? Of course not. Be fallacious, be fatuous, and other F words, because he'd have a squad that's much better than that. Arne Slot's doing great. He deserves credit for it. He took over a team that is functionally similar to one that's gotten over 90 points before and won the league. Maresca's doing great this season, no question. He took over a squad that's had the most investment ever in any squad in Premier League history in a short period of time. So the phase thing is stupid. Yes, first-time managers doing well is frustrating versus our manager, but they took over squads that should be doing well. Should we be doing better? Sure. Don't compare what you're doing against what someone else is doing. Their circumstances are different. That would be my philosophy. So, Clive, it is the case, and no one wants to hear it, that Liverpool have taken 2 points from their last 6.
So have we.
So, yeah. So unfortunately,
We're on pace.
Yeah, we're on pace. We're keeping pace with the leaders. And everybody's miserable because of that. But by the same token, what that means is had we won our last 2 and Liverpool won their last 2, we'd be happier, weirdly. We'd be happier. I get it, because we'd have won. But functionally, we've lost no ground in the title race. We've been handed a gift, in fact. We've had 2 performances that are probably good enough for wins, but weren't wins. Now it is time to reinvent, find some new solutions, get sharp in front of goal. But at least we've seen that Liverpool are not here to run away and have a 100-point season. So are you able to take any encouragement from at least the fact, if something positive were to come out of the end of this podcast, it's that the team at the top of the table has taken a couple on the chin. And that's reason enough for us to find some solutions and go again.
Yeah, I'm in the place where we need to stop looking at next door neighbour's garden, mate. Let's look after our own garden. Simple as that. And our own garden, it's got a few patches in it, right? we need some winter feed out there, right? We need to look out. We need to look after some of our players and get them back. And get them back somehow. And they have to turn out against Palace. They've got to do it again on Saturday night, which is, and Crystal Palace suddenly run into form. I did a show earlier on today with some Palace guys, and basically they are looking forward to it. And this cup means a lot to them. They know they're not going to win the league. There are 2 cups to go for, and they're in the quarterfinals of 1. And they're like the form team in the league nearly at the moment. They just got away to
play them twice.
And we play them twice in a week. Cheers, thanks a lot. That is the schedule, right? Liverpool play Southampton. I'm not going to talk about them, but I just am. Liverpool play Southampton with a goalkeeper who was 106. It just happened to run into a third goalkeeper, and he gave them 2 goals. And they win the game, right? This is the stuff that you need to go your way. You need it to go your way, and it's not going our way this season so far. But we got no excuses, right? We all said we ain't travelling outside London for ages. We got a lot of home games, winnable games. Well, here we are. We've got some winnable games, and we haven't won the first 2. A bit unfortunate, if we're honest, but we haven't done it. And so now we have to do it. We're playing Palace twice in a week. Mate, we can't have 2 losses, mate. We can't have 2 losses. That's not going to work, for anybody. And so this is it now. I bet there's some serious team meetings going on this week, and we have to focus to make sure we deal with them. But one thing I did sort of hear today, and this is something to think about, Everton didn't try to play us, right? They did their job. Palace are a bit more confident. They play a back 3 system. They will try to play us. The last 2 back 3 systems we played, Elliot, Sporting, Manchester United, and we looked quite good against both of them, didn't we, in attacking. So I think, despite Palace having 3 really good centre-backs, I think we can take them. And their confidence may actually feed into us, because we won't be playing against a low block. But it depends who we select on the day, because they'll be coming here fully tooled up, full strength to take us.
Trying to figure out what's form and what's talent is hard, but we have some evidence that these players can produce the results. These players, the ones we have, forget the ones we don't have, we can't call on them. We have some evidence the players we have can produce the results. So we need that. Thank you very much, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Caught you. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me everywhere and gutter. We'll just keep discussing what happens. But I do want to say this because I know some people are pretty down. This is the journey. You're going to be a football supporter. This is what you sign up to go on. You go on the journey. 9 seasons out of 10, it's going to have maybe a little more heartbreak than exhilaration, So you got to be prepared to go on that journey. And one thing I do like about this Arsenal, and I know nobody wants to hear stuff like this, but you know what? We tend to be good in the big games. Every season I circle some things. Can we win the title? Can we win the Champions League or qualify for it? Can we win a cup? Can we beat our rivals? Can we win a game against Spurs or 2 ideally? Can we beat Chelsea? Can we beat United? We've already beaten United. We've already beaten Spurs. We've already beaten Villa. You know, I like that we still have some things each season that we're doing right. I think we're going to be very good in big games because we're hard to beat. So yeah, let's just go on the journey and and accept that it's going to crush you at times, but I still think there's some exhilaration ahead. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that. We'll leave it there. We love you. Thank you very much. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Pascal.